So imagine you've got this team of AI agents, right? And they're working for you 24/7, keeping all your systems running perfectly. That's really the dream of autonomous AI. But it brings up a huge question. How do you let them do their job without, losing control? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down an architecture that does exactly that. We're talking about agents that never sleep, but are always working safely. All right, let's jump in.
And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Handing over the keys to your entire system to an AI, that sounds terrifying. So how do you give it enough freedom to actually be useful while making absolutely sure it can't go rogue and do something destructive? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together today.
Okay, so the secret sauce here is a feature called autonomous mode. You can think of it as the always-on switch that lets these agents proactively manage tasks, so a human being doesn't have to be there clicking buttons for every little thing. So what is autonomous mode really? Well, at its core, it's a system that lets these specialized AI agents run specific low-risk jobs on a regular, repeating schedule. Now, the key words there are low risk and repeating intervals. This is not about letting the AI have a free-for-all. It's about automating all those routine checks and balances that keep your systems humming along smoothly. But, like I said, this isn't the Wild West. This autonomy is built on a really strict set of rules that perfectly balance speed with safety. And when it comes to the big, critical decisions, well, a human is always in the driver's seat. The easiest way to think about this is to compare it to taking care of your car. Some things are happening constantly, right? Your dashboard is always checking the engine temperature. Other things are more periodic, like maybe checking your tire pressure once a month. And then for the big stuff, like an engine repair, you're calling a mechanic, no question. This system works in exactly the same way. And this is where that car analogy really comes to life. You can see we've got 4 different speed tiers. They range from fast, checks happening every 30 seconds, all the way to rare, checks that only run every 15 minutes. For instance, that normal tier, running every 60 seconds, is perfect for a standard operational check, like having a monitoring agent make sure an application is still responsive. And the slow tier, at 5 minutes, is for deeper dives, like having that same agent scan recent logs for any weird patterns. Each tier is specifically designed for a different type of job. So what's actually happening in that super quick, fast tier? Well, think of these as your system's vital signs. Every 30 seconds, the SRE agent is running infrastructure diagnostics. The DBA agent is checking database replication. The monitoring agent is querying metrics. It's just like the dashboard lights in your car. It's always on, always watching. Now, let's jump all the way to the other end of the spectrum, the rare tier. These are the deep, comprehensive inspections. They're like your car's big annual service. We're talking full security vulnerability scans, cost optimization analysis, and making sure your backups are actually valid. These are absolutely critical, but you definitely don't need to run them every 30 seconds. Let me put my Chief Reliability Officer hat on for a second. The whole philosophy here is simple. Autonomy is a privilege that the system has to earn. We grant it for tasks where we have total confidence. But for anything that carries significant risk, a human partner isn't just a good idea, it's non-negotiable. And this is where we draw a very, very hard line in the sand. Certain actions, like rolling back a production deployment or triggering a full-blown incident response, are just too critical to ever be fully automated. They are completely off-limits for autonomous mode, period. So what happens if an agent does need to do one of those high-risk things? Well, it kicks off a special workflow. It'll do all the prep work, get everything ready to go, but then it hits a hard stop. It's called an approval gate, and the entire process just pauses, waiting for a human operator to look it over and give the explicit thumbs up. Only then can it continue. So the whole point, really, the main takeaway here is that this entire system is designed around the principle of human in the loop. We let automation handle the repetitive, tedious work, but the critical, high-impact decisions, those are always made by humans. It's a true partnership. Okay, so we know what the agents are doing, but how do they talk to each other to get things done? They don't just, shout into the void. They use a very structured, very secure system called the agent-to-agent protocol, or A2A for short. At its simplest, the communication is just a direct point-to-point loop. One agent sends out a task request message to another, which is basically it saying, "Hey, can you run this for me?" Then, the second agent gets the job done and sends back a task result message with the outcome. It's a clean, auditable, one-to-one conversation.
And where do all these conversations happen? They all go through the API gateway. You should think of it as the system's air traffic controller and its security guard, all rolled into one. It routes every single message, makes sure every request is properly authenticated, and acts as the single checkpoint for all communication. Nothing gets through without the right credentials.
All right, let's zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture. We know about autonomous mode, but how else are tasks triggered? And more importantly, how does the system keep everything secure and separate, especially if you have different teams or even different clients using it? It turns out autonomous mode isn't the only game in town for automation. It has a partner, this scheduling engine. Well, autonomous mode is for that proactive, always-on, continuous monitoring. The scheduler is for jobs that need to run at a very specific time. Think cron jobs, things like generating a report every night at midnight or doing a cleanup task every Sunday. They're really two sides of the same automation coin.
Security and making sure tenants are isolated is obviously a huge deal. This is handled using something called JWT scopes. The easiest way to think about this is like different key cards for a building. Public routes for basic health checks don't require any keycard at all. Protected routes for running standard agent tasks require the execute agent's keycard. But only an admin has the master key, the admin system scope. That's the one that unlocks the ability to control autonomous mode or manage the whole system. This makes sure everybody stays in their own lane.
So you've got all this cool automation humming away in the background. But how does a person actually see what's going on? Well, that's where the dashboard comes in. It's the human command center for this whole operation.
And this is not some static report that's updated once an hour. Every single panel on this dashboard is showing live, real-time data. That's powered by some really cool tech on the front end, specifically hooks from a library called TanStack React Query, which are constantly pulling in the latest info. From here, an admin can see the health of every single agent. And with a simple flip of a switch in the autonomous panel, they can turn autonomous modes on or off instantly.
Okay, so we've gone through a lot of details here. The different tiers, the safety rules, the communication protocols. What's the one big idea that we should walk away with?
And it really comes down to this. Good, effective, trustworthy automation is never, ever about replacing people. It's about empowering them. It's about building a really robust system with clear rules, solid safety guardrails, and human oversight, which then frees up your experts to go solve the hard, complex problems that actually need a human brain.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. When you build a system like this, one that's founded on trust, where humans and AI agents are working together as real partners, what new doors open up? What bigger, more complex problems suddenly seem solvable? That's when things get really interesting.